Unfortunately, the ripple effects of Charlie Kirk's assassination have yet to end. I feel like this is just the beginning. But on that subject, recently, as you may know, Jimmy Kimmel's the late night show host Jimmy Kimmel, his show was suspended and definitely taken off air by his parent company Disney. And in this video, I kind of want to dissect not only my opinions on Jimmy Kimmel's comments, but more so the larger implications of free speech rights. So on Jimmy Kimmel's show a couple of days ago, he talked about the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and he made the claim that Charlie Kirk's assassin was not, a far left thinker, a left ideologist, a progressive ideologist, and in fact, he was actually part of the MAGA gang. He was a Trump supporter. Many people have now started to think that the assassin was what they call a groyper, which means people who are further right of MAGA and who think MAGA is not going far enough. But by the evidence, and I trust that the FBI and I trust that the local authorities are giving accurate evidence, by that evidence alone, it's highly improbable that the shooter is anything but left-leaning. Does that mean if you're left-leaning, you agree with everything he says? Does that mean you are too also a political extremist and a violent person? No, the answer is no. But in this specific case, to say that Charlie Kirk's assassin was one of the MAGA gang, was part of a conservative wing, is factually untrue and incorrect. However, this kind of goes into the weeds of my video, and I think what's the more nuance here is we talk about free speech rights. So free speech constitutionally does not mean free of criticism, right? When people love to say, "Oh, I have free speech rights. I get to say whatever I want to say, and I'm free of any criticism, free of any." It's like people who commit crimes, people who do outlandish things in public and say, "Well, it's a free country, isn't it?" It's with an asterisk, right? Free of speech does not mean free of criticism. You get to say whatever you'd like to say. I try to abide by free speech principles. When people want to attack me in my comments, they have the right to say that. But you don't have the right to be exalt of any criticism. So in that sense, yes, I am exercising my free speech rights by criticizing Jimmy Kimmel. But now that you have the FCC getting entangled with a government federal, agency, the leader of the FCC, the head, I forgot his name, but he was very publicly vocal about his dislike for Jimmy Kimmel and dislike for this entire situation. And you can start to see where the cracks start to flip through about free speech. The federal government has to uphold by the free speech. The First Amendment says Congress shall make no law. It's directed to the federal government. If you're a private business, you can set up your laws and the way you conduct your business based on, a certain set of statutes. But for example, like on Twitter, Elon Musk effectively can ban anybody he wants on Twitter. He elects to say, "Hey, I want a free speech platform." That's up to him, but he's not beholden by any law to be like, "Okay, I have to abide by this." Same thing with Disney. The only way I would say, okay, I really don't care about them pulling off Jimmy Kimmel if it was in their own kind of intention. It was their own thing as a private network television company to pull off a show because of their own private reasons, right? That sort of stuff. If you are being colluded by the federal government, that's a whole different can of worms, which is totally unacceptable in my opinion, and kind of goes to show why libertarianism, in my opinion, still carries that idea of sound ideology where, if you ask the average libertarian, what is the use of the FCC, especially in a day like today where everything's digital, most people post on social media, they say that the government has no responsibility, no place to tell a news network, a television show to what they can and can't say. If you're violating a law, then there's a difference, but purely just your free speech rights, the fact that the FCC is colluding with, Disney and all these kinds of networks is puzzling. And it's very contradictory to what Trump ran on, this idea of free speech. But I will also like to add that this is not exclusive to Trumpism. This is not exclusive to MAGA theory. If many of you may recall, during the COVID um, pandemic, the Biden administration illegally, unconstitutionally, as confirmed by an appellate court, went to Facebook and Meta platforms to regulate, um, theories about what they think is misinformation, disinformation, about what users can and can't post, and they gave Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Meta, an almost a ransom, a blackmail, if you will, to say, hey, if you don't abide by what we're doing, you're gonna, the federal government's gonna come after you. As the federal government's responsibility to ensure First Amendment rights, that's a violation of that. It doesn't matter, what they're trying to parade against. Maybe yes, the misinformation is noble intent. We don't want misinformation about COVID, but the perspective of the libertarian is like who gets to play king to decide what is correct, what is truth, what is moral, what is hate speech. I mean, Pam Bondi just came out and said that we have the right to persecute. I think if I'm remembering correctly, but she did mention the word that hate speech can be applied by law enforcement. And that might sound noble if you're part of the MAGA crowd, but as soon as the pendulum swings to the other direction, the problem really starts to brew. I mean, put it in the opposite direction, right? Let's say a MAGA version of the Democrat Party rises in the next 4 years, and the next Democrat president takes Sean Hannity off the air because of collusions and because of pressure from their FCC agency, and Sean Hannity is removed off the air. Now the wheels start to turn to say, hey, this is a big deal because you don't want to stoop to someone's level. I don't really care what Jimmy Kimmel says in terms of the legality of it all. I don't really care what the Biden administration is telling Meta to pull. It doesn't really matter to me. What the law is essentially it disregards these sort of like nuanced things. Like, yes, I can recognize wholeheartedly noble intentions maybe of the MAGA movement of the Trump administration or the Biden administration, but that's just my opinion, right? And my opinion is obviously not going to line up exactly with everybody else's opinion. So long story short, I think this is a very sad thing to happen. I don't think this is the first time this has happened. There's been many times where presidents collude with private enterprise, but this is never good, especially from a libertarian standpoint. The government has no right telling a private business how they should conduct themselves as long as the business is following the laws, especially free speech laws, which are pretty open and pretty not strict and ought not to be strict because you know the slippery slope starts to happen where it's like, oh, if he did this, if this president did this, then we can do that. And then you can start to see where it just de-escalates from there and it turns into a slippery slope. But overall, I'm very disappointed in not only what Jimmy Kimmel says, but the FCC and the Trump administration at whole. I think this is a lose-lose on both sides where majority of people, I would say, disagree with what Jimmy Kimmel said, but at the same time, respecting his free speech rights, sanctioned by, I'm not, like I said, I won't, if Disney pulled Jimmy Kimmel because that was their personal choice as a corporation, go for it. I'm not going to stop you. But the fact that there is possible evidence that there was government interference kind of frustrates me. But yeah, thank you for watching. Let me know what you guys think. If you like the video, like the video. If you dislike the video, dislike it, and I am out.